sees the memes of production, and the like and subscribe button. Trump backs idea to send some of Doge savings to American citizens. Well, despite what Doge has claimed, so far they've saved what, like 2 billion of verifiable, like verifiably they've saved like 2 billion or something like that. Elon Musk said every American should get 5,000, which, sorry, I'm just a boy. I'm just a stupid boy. I suck dick. I don't do math. 5,000 times 300 million. 1.5 E plus 12. That's probably a big number. Sure, why not, man? But the administration is considering the concept in which 20% of the savings produced by Doge's cost-cutting efforts go to American citizens, and another 20% goes to paying down the national debt. Wait, where the f would the other 60% go? The government doesn't have like the government doesn't have like a bank account in that way. It's not like, oh, we finally saved money or whatever. You put the money towards the principal to roll into the next year's budget. It's all bullshit anyway, because Doge is lying about how much money they saved. Again, what happens when the government starts putting out official documents misrepresenting how much debt it owes and how much money it has? If it's misrepresenting how much money it has, that can only be covered by additional borrowing. Like, all of this money, it might be abstract in concept, but these are payments being dispersed by the Department of the Treasury. You can, Musk can dip his balls in the Treasury payment dispersal stream all he wants. There's still money running through it. Trillions of dollars running through it every year. All of this gets accounted for at some point or another. It's not funny money. Like, at least it can't be for long. Like, I'll put it this way, okay? There are governments out there that are a lot more corrupt than the United States. For now, at least. Why don't they just do the funny money bit? Why doesn't Russia just go, oh, of course we have more money than you think. We're not bankrupting the country by spending a huge portion of our GDP on the war. Actually, we have more money than you think. And the reason for that is because Russia's just like writing fake checks and misrepresenting their debt and their money. The reason is because it always comes to account eventually. Like, these discrepancies always emerge under close scrutiny. China does, you did a segment on it. They lie about their GDP pretty severely. For one, I say that, we don't know, but there's a difference between lying about your GDP, which is a metric that you use to determine economic activity within a country, and lying about how much money you have. Those are two. Like, the GDP is like an assessment of economic trajectory. I'm not saying it's like completely made up, but there's a lot of subjectivity and a lot of ways you can game the numbers in ways that are not necessarily representative of the kind of economic activity we're talking about. But at the end of the day, the accounting books, those are on the money, not on the GDP. The GDP is just an abstract assessment. It's an outside thing, you know? If they gave a $5,000 bribe, wouldn't that explode inflation? For one, yes, but also they can't, because they're saying they would give 20% of the savings produced by Doge's cost cutting, which is nothing. 20% of 2 billion is $0. Just did that in my head. You're welcome. But like, it's nonsensical. They could try to win the public's trust with a giant $5,000 check for everyone, but where would that come from? Would that be accounted for in the ledgers? Would we be borrowing that money? Like, would the government admit, okay, we don't have that money from the cost cutting. In reality, we have to like add massively to the debt in order to do it, because that would be pretty bad for the economy, but it would also indicate they haven't saved any money. What would happen if they just printed 5K for everyone? Well, if they printed it, the Federal Reserve would, I'm sorry, I'm not a modern monetary theorist, okay? The Federal Reserve would make that printing known, but it's not, the Federal Reserve would have to give that money, like the Fed would have to give that money, and everyone would know about it, and everyone would know the dollar was being devalued. That would be pretty bad. If you're just borrowing, if you're just like racking up America's debt, that's arguably not as bad for inflation. Well, not arguably, it's objectively not as bad for inflation because you're not devaluing the dollar in the same way. All you're really doing is putting a balance on America's tab and giving it to the citizenry. Now that money's being exchanged around the citizenry, the total amount of money hasn't gone up. Like, the total amount of USD in the world hasn't gone up. You're just kind of like buying back time on your debt clock, you know? Whereas if you print $1.5 trillion, and then the Fed just gives that to the government, that devalues the worth of the American dollar, because that kind of implies that America could just pay down all of its debts by just printing an ungodly amount of money, which wouldn't really be solving the debt issue at all, because then the perceived value of the dollar would go down. Basically, it would be bad. I'm not like an... Not if we lie. Okay, not if we lie, but there's no way for the Fed to print money and give that kind of money to the government without it being public information. There's simply no way to. The way bills are tracked, the way money's tracked, so burn more money, well, that's against the law, but it would be deflationary if they did, and it would increase the value of America's debt, which would be bad for America. Even with the new admin? Well, yeah. Guys, the way economics works, the way inflation works, this is a fact of reality. I'm not saying that like supply side economics or whatever is like engraved in the, you know, the code of Hammurabi or what. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying like this shit's been happening for a long time. Did you know that the Spanish more or less crashed the European gold economy because they brought back so much gold from the New World that it devalued it broadly? Like, even back in those days when you could literally, like, all the wealth you could have, like, in a big treasure chest in a castle, like, they brought back so much gold that it became a problem. Silver, but yeah, silver, gold, silver, same thing, different colors, whatever. Which is funny because there was a shortage before that. Alexander the Great did the same thing. That's crazy. Also, they can't just introduce the money. The government sells the Fed US bonds, so the Fed pays the money so the government can... But yeah, exactly. Like, there's no... It's just, it's not workable, you know? Now, I think this is a solvable problem economically because the real absence of wealth is the trillions that get siphoned out of the economy into offshore illegal tax havens, and the trillions that get held in the stock portfolios and bank accounts of the ultra wealthy that don't circulate in the economy because they're being hoarded, which could literally be completely solved with a major upper like percentile tax hike to like 99%, which is what we had in the 50s. And very aggressive tax fraud investigation abroad. We could spend the Pentagon budget level of money on investigating tax fraud abroad and make a profit off of it. Like, we could literally build a new Pentagon, give it $800 billion in a year, and say, your job is now to go after those Cayman Island accounts, liquidate those assets, and reintroduce them to the economy. And it would make money. It would be profitable if it did that, which is why Republicans go after the IRS and want to lower taxes. I mentioned that, and someone said if you did it, it would cause huge amounts of inflation. It would, well, it might cause a bit of inflation, but you would be introducing so much money into the economy that I think you could reasonably control it. Look, it would be like an unprecedented seizure of wealth, but it would be deserved. So, you know, do you think they know this, or is this stupidity? The wealthy? Of course they know it. That's why they do everything they can to keep us from doing it. Yeah, absolutely. That's why that Panama Papers lady got her car bombed, you know? That's why no one looks into those offshore accounts. Do you have any idea how much wealth is held in them? The wealth that's held there, by the way, it's not just like 5 billionaires. It's everyone. All your favorite celebrities, your comedy show folks, your politicians, they all have money over there because they give their money to very, very talented accountants who hide it over there. You know, it's not easy hiding your money overseas like that, but smart accountants can do it. The right people can do it. It's not just like 5 people with their evil schemes. It's what you do when you're very wealthy. Bill Burr? Maybe not Bill Burr. Trillions have been taken out of the tax base this way? Yep. Trillions that could have otherwise been taxed and used to fuel the government, used to fuel, you know, infrastructural spending, used to fuel, et cetera, you know. You understand. Everyone, including warlords and drug cartels? Yep. Our oligarchs, Russian oligarchs, Brazilian oligarchs, South African oligarchs, Chinese oligarchs, yeah. Emma Watson had offshore accounts, lol. Yeah, and here's the thing to understand. Emma Watson probably doesn't know that, or didn't know that. Emma Watson, like many wealthy people, doesn't manage her own wealth. God, can you imagine? No, you hire someone to manage your wealth. And those people who you hire are talented and they're paid well, and they make you way more money than they earn in their paycheck because they do shit like that. What's even the point of that? You can't do anything with it? Yeah, that's what wealthy people do with their money. They hoard it like dragons. Yeah, what do you think they do? You make the money, so they want to not get taxed on. Then you get loans on the money and pay no taxes. Yes, there are ways to leverage that wealth. For financing, that sort of thing. It's all very complicated. And, you know, it's not like I'm an expert on it anyway. That was our obligatory, like, you know,
Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these
sorry
past...
about the audio. Didn't realize that'd start playing. That was all financial advice. Yeah, find yourself an accountant who can help you commit tax fraud in a video game. Don't actually do that. Not that this administration would have an issue with that. Still think you read over the wiki page of hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic so chat can really understand. I think what I want is like a really good econ textbook that finds ways to cleanly delineate between the real economy and the fake economy. The real economy being actual monetary transactions that take place on the ground level. Wages, you know, taxes, exchanges at like a local business, you know, like beans, exactly, beans and rice. All that stuff that's really happening, that's actually engaged with, you know, the lives of people, that can be tracked and organized. It's not speculative, it's not abstract, it's not leveraged, it's just money. Like, you could theoretically replace all of these financial transactions with like gold coins and it would all work exactly the same. It'd be clumsy, but it would work, you know? And then on top of that, of course, you have the enormous bubble of speculation. And I like the distinction between these two and the way we calculate our, you know, whatever. I'm a political economy theorist in grad school. I'll email you some. Don't send me a long email. People keep making the mistake of thinking that because they have special knowledge of a subject, they that I want their knowledge, when they don't realize from my perspective, it's like I get an email that's 18 paragraphs long and I'm just supposed to like take it at face value. You know what I mean? Like somebody's like, hey, just so you know, this is how this works. And I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have to fact check everything you're saying because I can't say this just because you've said it. If anything, emailing me is like a early warning sign against somebody's credibility because I know they watch me. Kathy Hochul has decided against removing embattled New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office, Gothamist has learned. I actually don't know if I disagree with this because the New York mayoral election is upcoming so closely that her deciding to remove him might inflame national attention more than it's worth, because like the actual election is coming up, right? And it's unlikely the New York City population is going to vote him back in. Yeah, it's basically the difference between doing an immediate special election and like a regular procedural one in just a little bit. They're going to vote for Cuomo for mayor. Look, I'm not a big Andrew Cuomo stan, but at least it's not Eric Adams, okay? Like, Jesus, you know? Cuomo would win. Gojo Jujutsu Kaisen manga panel .png. Yeah, I'd win. And it's Cuomo. That panel's peak. Yeah, like the peaking of the turtle head of the match you're trying to let out. I'm sorry. I don't want to be here. Farming -2s. It's a humble, earnest work.
Unfortunately, it's clear that this council does not listen, so instead I'm going to take my time to say what MAGA has stood for these past 3 weeks. MAGA stands for trying to erase trans people from existence.